All right, thank you and welcome to our YouTube channel again. Welcome to part 2 of our material on the training of external auditors. My name is Abiola Fajimi. Like I mentioned earlier, or I mentioned in part 1 of this training, that this training is a series of training designed to help auditors, help firm of chartered accountant build capacity. So if you have not seen part 1 or what part 1 of this video, I will advise that you kindly go and look for it and do that. So in this part 2, we will start with our series on planning. Remember, in part 1 we'll cover pre-engagement activities. So in part 2 we'll be focusing on planning, and that is what we're going to do for the next 5 series, focusing on the kind of activities that we'll carry out as part of the planning phase of an external audit. Like I mentioned also in that part 1, that these materials are part of materials we have used for our various external audit training over the years, and these materials are also abridged. The training content itself is much more detailed than this, but we've compressed it and make it as brief as possible so that the users, people watching the video, can benefit. So, one of the things that you do at the planning phase of an audit is to have an audit kickoff meeting with your clients. At this point, you want to go into the client office, have a meeting with them to understand their business and what has happened, and the kind of topics we'll cover when holding audit kickoff meeting with the client are understanding the business. You want to know what has happened to the business in the last 12 months. If it's an existing client, you want to understand the nature of business. If it's a new client, or you want to understand the internal control and approval process, how do they do their things, and then you want to know about the key development in the business and environment. Are there any specific laws and regulation that is not relevant to the business? Are they complying with all the necessary compliance requirements? And then also even the status of your information request that you send to them as part of pre-engagement activities, and also to discuss the project timeline with the client. This exercise is very important because it gives you an understanding of what to expect for that client audit. It helps you to identify the major issues you might likely come across on that audit. So we'll do that audit kickoff at the beginning of the audit. I always advise that you should do your kickoff before your team even moves into the field. The next thing is also need to have the team kickoff discussion. Sometimes we hold the team kickoff discussion before doing the audit kickoff discussion. So all of these things we'll be talking about from this point are non-linear process. They overlaps. Sometimes they come after before the other. So there's no, it's not a linear activity that is step by step. That's the order it must happen. It depends on how convenient for the firm when carrying out the audit. So the next thing is the team kickoff discussion. This is one of my favorite things in an audit process. You assemble your team and talk about the engagement you're about to start. So you talk about the engagement scope. So you want the team to understand what exactly are we doing? What is the scope of this audit? Next is you look at you discuss the client control environment and issues that may impact on the audit with the audit team. And here in this meeting, the partner is critical. He needs to bring to bear his experience on the client audit or on similar industrial similar engagement audit, so that the team can be guided. They know what to look out for, and they're not just going about without direction. So we do a discussion on the client control environment and issue that may impact on the audit. We also discuss the risk assessment procedures. Where are the critical risk areas? What are the things to consider are very important? Then all these strategy decisions are taken in this meeting. Things like materiality are discussed, timing of the audit activities, when it's going to happen, who is doing what, are we involving an expert, are we involving external a third party to support the audit process, are we involving specialists? All of these are discussed during the team kickoff discussion: the financial statement and the assertion level risk, significant account, and the audit file structure. And let me talk about the audit file structure. One of the things I also see that people don't pay attention to is the way they structure their audit file. As an auditor, your file needs to be properly structured. You need to have table of content and put in all the key documents that are expected on your file. Then we'll discuss the issue of complying with ethical requirements. Are they complying with all the necessary ethical requirements? All of those things are discussed during the kickoff discussion within the team. And remember, all these meetings must be documented. Everything I've been talking and will still talk about must be documented. The rule of audit is that if it is not documented, it is considered not done. So it must be documented. The next thing we need to do is timing of audit activities. We need to document timing of our various audit activities. When are we expected to deliver the deliverables? When are we expected to submit the draft account for the client review? When are we expected to have a closeout meeting? When are we expected to conclude on the engagement? All of this must be documented. Other activities such as specific audit procedures, which are things that have to do with going concern, subsequent event, related parties, we must document at what point do we want to do it. Meetings and other communication with management and those charged with governance. When do we want to have those meetings with these key people? Is there already agreed date for board meeting? All of this we need to document it. Team meeting and other communication with engagement team. Again, if there are some specific communication that needs to happen within the team and other engagement team member, that has to be documented as part of the timing of audit activities. So we put all of this together. This helps us in our overall planning for the audit. Imagine if you are auditing an entity like SEC regulated, Security and Exchange Commission regulated in Nigeria. You know that the financial statement must be submitted latest 90 days after end, 31st March of every year. The financial statement must be submitted. So you need to put in that information as part of your audit planning so that everybody involved on that audit understands that come 31st March, before 31st March, they must close that audit. The same way I used to work for a client who 31st January was usually their board meeting. They were 31st September year end, and the board will meet on 31st of January to approve the account. So you must be conscious of all of those things when planning your audit. So you put in those critical dates into your audit file so that everybody can work towards it. And those are the kind of things we do when we talk about timing of audit activity. So we'll continue in the next series, our planning activities. For this planning, we're going to around 6 series, like I said, and this is the first series on the planning, part 2 of the presentation, but the first one focused on planning. So we've covered basic things about planning now. In the subsequent one, we'll look at other aspects of planning. I still remain Abiola Fajimi. If you need to reach me, my phone number is up and my email or our corporate email is up. Send us an email with whatever concern you may have and our team will deal with it. Thank you very much and see you in part 3 of this series.